Now, a new book discusses the idea of trust and argues that it is waning in the workplace in particular, which filters through to other aspects of life. A recent survey discovered that just about 30% of the UK's employees trust their CEOs much less than a decade ago. Business author Geoff Hudson-Searle commissioned the survey and argues that if we're to survive a cost of living nightmare in a post-Brexit, post-pandemic world, we need to tackle this issue head-on. Well, Helena spoke to Geoff about his new book, The Trust Paradigm.
So the connection that people have with their CEO is diminishing. The employee engagement, diminishing. The ability to actually apply things like effective listening, empathy, which is a huge subject now, leads to understanding. If a leader wants to be credible, and lead purpose within an organization, he has to do all of that and communicate more effectively to the employee so that we can build trust. And trust we trust. The world is fragmented right now because we're very transactional. And we're not thinking the human relationship and what glue is required in order to consummate that and make it more effective in terms of both from a business perspective, but also more importantly, from a performance perspective.
And then, there's been a significant drop in trust over the last generation.
Yeah, 100%.
And do you think that this reflects wider public attitudes? Now, look, we saw trust in government fall with Boris Johnson and Partygate, and here in London, a lot of women especially don't really trust the Metropolitan Police anymore after a series of scandals. Does this survey reflect wider public attitudes, or is it a different factor?
No, 100%. You're really on point with this. So the research that I've carried out in the last 30 years has shown a distinctive diminishing of public attitude towards trust. So if we look at trust from a societal perspective, I believe that there's a lack of trust in government, one, and geopolitically, and some of the decisions that are being made are not in the people's interest. I believe in business we've got a horrendous situation, and I think that we've got to go back to some basics. I've got to say that culture I mentioned just earlier, but I think it's wider than that. I think we've got to get back to design thinking, innovation, people at the center, company culture, trust, and start to build organizations that truly put people at the center, because we're missing things like we might be addressing equality and diversity from a board perspective, right? But we're not addressing certain things like inclusion. London is, without question, the most connected city in the world. Proud to be a part of London, but it's also the most disconnected city when you start to think about the relationship. So I think, yes, and I think I want to say one more thing. When I say societal, I also say about family life and husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever generic formula that might turn out to be. We are lacking trust at home. And so if we look to leadership, we look to government to lead. And if we're not having that sense of leadership from government, we're hardly going to have that looking in the business arena. And certainly as far as home concerned, all you're going to see is this whole trust fragmentation, which I'm afraid to say is not going to work in any economy.
Absolutely. Well, in your book, which is out at the end of this month, you give lessons to help business leaders restore trust. Can you give us any examples of what we might find in the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book's, I'm very proud of the book. The Trust Paradigm has been basically written on the basis that we need to start restoring trust into societal. So we've started to examine, and we've through 30 years of my business, working in 120 international countries around the world, doing major large change programs and executive board posts, we've come together to give people the right lessons. So every chapter within the book has got a golden nugget, so to speak, where people can actually adapt and apply that to their own life. Now, everyone's different. Everyone's unique. We're all extraordinary. But we've tried to address all of the behaviors, cognitive as well as practical lessons that people can actually apply. So actually, we want it for them to be their go-to book. We want it for them to actually get positive influences from the book which can actually change life. I don't believe I think we're entering a trust era, if I can say that. I think that the next 10 years As the good Tom Peters said, trust, technology is not the issue of the decade, but trust is. And I think that we're entering a trust era. And I think that the ratifications and the changes that we're seeing in life, and which we've addressed in the book, are clearly very important for each and every one of us, irrespective of who we are, or what we represent, whether government, business, or even family life at home. The book serves its purpose, and it's no better time than this book needs to be published. But this book needs to be published to the world, and there is no doubt in my mind that this book will help support, and to be a part of that is greatness as far as I'm concerned. So
there we are, Geoff Hudson-Searle there chatting to Helena, and The Trust Paradigm is out on the 28th of October.